Now, this is the one you guys have been waiting for, so we're going to get right into it. This is called the Four Spirits of the Heavens, and again, just to give you some insight of where we're coming from and what we're doing. We're going through the House of David and the scroll, and we've covered the military, we've covered the 12 camps, and now we're going to look at the four spirits of the heavens, okay? And I have a lot of subject matter to go over. There's a lot of things in this that I might say quickly. A lot of things I'm going to go over to bear witness to the same end result. And if I say anything that you don't quite understand, I encourage you to pause the video and rewind it and say, what was that again? Or to capture all of the pieces of this. It's just important that you understand that with everything I'm telling you, I'm just reading the information and returning it to you, okay? I'm not trying to force any kind of, I have no axe to grind. I'm not saying you have to do it this way or anything. I just want you to see and release the revelation and seal of the four spirits of the heavens. I think it's been hidden from us, but it's time we understand these things, all right? So let's get right into it. As we do, we're going to go and we're going to look at, like we did in the last video, we had Zechariah chapter 6. Actually, before we had Zechariah chapter 1. Now we're going to look at Zechariah chapter 6. And instead of looking at the camps, like we did before, now we're going to look at the four spirits of the heavens. All right? So let's go to Zechariah 6. And here we can see, remember before Zechariah God was showing him a number of things, and he had an angel with him that was narrating. All right, so now he says, and I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. So brass meaning judgment. In the first chariot were red horses. In the second chariot, black horses. In the third chariot, white horses. In the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay. And bay here means swift or fast horses. Okay? And Zechariah says, and I answered. So he's like, what is this? It's like the thing he was seeing was like caused him, and I answered. I had to respond to this. And I said to the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord? Okay. So before we go into the angel's response, I want to point something out here. And this is on your notes on the handout that says order of legions and camps. So number 1 is red. Number 2 is black. Number 3 is white. Number 4 is grizzled. All right? Now, if you go to Ezekiel chapter 10 and verse 14, he sees the cherubim, and they have 4 faces, right? What are their faces? Well, if you go by the order here, their faces are ox, man, lion, eagle. Okay? So here you have red. Red is ox. 2 is man. 2 is black. 2 is man. All right? 3 is white. 3 is lion. 4 is grizzled. 4 is eagle. Okay? So that's all in your notes, but those all line up perfectly. I'll explain why later, what that is. All right? But the angel answered and said to Zechariah, these are the 4 spirits of the heavens. So that's what we're going to call them. We're going to look at them. We're going to look at what they do and understand it. But that's what we're going to call them. We're going to call them the 4 spirits of the heavens, because that's what it says here. And the angel says, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. Okay, so they're coming from God's throne. So they're standing before the throne. All right? And now we can see what they're doing. So, okay, he sees them. They come out from between two mountains. And remember, there's guys in the chariots, right? He's focusing on the colors of the horses, but there's different colored horses that are pulling chariots, and on the chariots are 4 guys, right? Verse 6, the black horses, which were bearing, go forth to the north country. The white horses go forth after them. So the chariot with the black horses and white horses, they all go to the north country. All right? And the black horses go forth to the north, the white go forth after them, yes, and the gristle go forth towards the south. Okay? And the bay went forth and sought that they might go to and fro. So, what's happening here? So, what's happening is the bay horses did not get their instructions. So they're saying, well, send us. But it's like, wait a minute, didn't you just come from standing before God? You know, these other guys went. Why didn't God tell you where to go? You just came before the throne, and why are you here? Well, I think God likes to have involvement, and so He sent them to Zechariah and the angels so that they would be involved in what is taking place here, because all of this is coming into the importance of Zechariah rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem at that time. Okay, so and so they told him, well, go forth and walk throughout the whole earth. And so they went to throughout the whole earth. So some went north, some went south, but these guys go throughout the whole earth. And remember, they're fast. So they go throughout the whole earth. Then cried he unto me and spake unto me and said, behold, so this is the angel, these that go towards the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. So whatever they did before, when we looked at Zechariah 1, that was kind of reconnaissance, reporting back. But these are going to do stuff, and whatever they did, they quieted and calmed down the angel, and his spirit was quieted, and he was like, okay, this is good. That's all it says, guys. But what I want to point out is their name. It says it here, the 4 spirits of the heavens. Okay, so that's the title of this, and we're going to look at these guys. Now, we can also find them in Daniel chapter 7 in verse 2. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by the night, and behold, 4 winds of the heaven. Now, winds in Hebrew, or in this case Aramaic, is ruach, which means wind or spirit. So you could also say the 4 spirits of the heavens. Well, that's just what Zechariah said. And they strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So Daniel sees the same 4 guys. And what they do is they go down and they strove on the sea to release, like a key and a gate, to open up the incarceration of these 4 beasts. So they are in greater principality and authority than these beasts. Okay, so we say principalities and powers. These are the ones that are over empires, but even they are subject to these 4 spirits of the heavens, I'm telling you. Okay, so what they do is they open up a gate and they open up access for these beings to come up out of the water, and Daniel sees them and says, oh, this one looks like a lion, a bear, a leopard, and the 4th was a terrible creature. All right, so we can see them also there in Daniel. So here they're doing missions. They go through the whole earth. There they come on the scene for Daniel, and they open up the incarceration of these beasts and principalities. All right, now let's find them in Revelation chapter 6. All right, now I didn't start here because if I did, the first thing you would have thought of was, well, those are the 4 horses of the apocalypse. Well, that's what we've been told. But I'm telling you that they are the 4 spirits of heavens, and we're going to see that they are. Okay? All right. So in Revelation 6:1, I saw when the Lord opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. So the noise of thunder here is the Father's voice. And one of the beasts saying, come and see. Okay, now let me slowly walk you through procedurally what is taking place here. Only the Lamb was worthy to open the scroll. The scroll was in the Father's right hand. No one could even look on it. But they sang the new song, only the Lamb is worthy to open the seal. So the seal is being opened. This is the first seal. The first seal is open to John. Now what happens is one of the four beasts saying, come and see. Now if you go to Revelation 4:7, the first beast was like a lion. So the first beast, like a lion, saying, come and see. So now the living creature with the face like a lion is opening a doorway, opening a gate to John to come and see the first spirit of the heaven. And what does he see? I saw, behold, a white horse. So if you take before the white horse, or the white chariot that we looked at in Zechariah, directly corresponded with the lion in Ezekiel, right? Well, that's the same thing that happens here. So they both are testifying to the same thing. This is all in the handout if any of this is kind of hard to follow. But remember, we have the first seal, and the first seal is the face of a lion, and he opens the seal of the white horse. So now we have a white horse, and him that sat on him with a bow and a crown was given to him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. Okay? So I hope you can see that. So the living creature is acting like a gatekeeper or a portal, and he's opening it up to John so he can see that, I see a white horse. So the living creature opens that revelation up to John, and then he sees this white horse. Okay? And then, that's the first seal, and then when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. So then there's another living creature, and then he opens up another gate. Come and see. And that one is like an ox. And what does he open? A red horse. So what's happening is each one of these is in position, north, south, east, and west, and they're also a different living creature with lion, ox, man, eagle, and they're opening white, red, black, pale. See all that? Okay. That's important for us to understand as we walk through this procedurally how this works. Okay? So, now let's, and so then we have, the red horse, and then he had a great sword, and to take peace from the earth to kill one another, all right? And the black horse had scales, and the pale horse had death and hell. Now these sound like negative things. So they sound like, things like people say, well, it's the Antichrist on them, or, there's the devil on them or something, But you can see here that they're called the four spirits of the heavens, and they come before God in his throne, and they issue judgments. So let me just say this, that God is good, and God is just, and God is love. And so it's important that we know those things when we see things like this. Because it's like, if you just go to court one day, and the judge says, we issue this man the death sentence, right? And you're just like, whoa, that judge is mean. But what happened? What did you sit in court? Did you see what happened? Did you hear the cries of the victims? Did you see what happened legally of all the violations that were done to reach that point of judgment? So that's the important thing. We have to see what's going on in court to see why the verdicts are taking place the way they are. Okay? So Revelation, what I'm going to get at here is the revelation of the four spirits of the heavens is that, yes, it's a time in the future. So, for example, there was power given to the fourth one, and a fourth part of the earth was killed. So that isn't happening right now. Okay, this is happening in the future. But what I'm getting at is many things in Revelation have happened before. And John is giving us insight into what's happening in the courts in heaven and God's ways. So what happens, guys, is, you remember in Revelation there is the altar of souls. So that is the cry of the victims. When you go to court, you listen to the testimony of the victims. And that's what moves. It's just like, that's what gives you the most sense of judgment. Yeah, we need judgment. Because you listen to what the person did, And then you legally go through the procedure. But what I'm saying is God is good, guys. He's not wanting to do these things. But they happen because of violations of the law. And the cries of the victims that he also represents. All right? So, another example of all of this taking place, it's taken place through, sometimes one of the spirits of heaven goes and does one thing. They don't all do all four things at once like we've seen. Okay, we'll look at examples like kind of one-off where they do things. But they do all come on the scene at the same time. Another time was 70 AD. Okay, so in Matthew 24, when the Lord Jesus is telling them about the end times, he's telling them two things. He's telling them, look, you know, remember the altar of souls? He said, the blood of Abel to Zechariah is going to be required in this generation. Well, what is that? That's the altar of souls. So the testimony of witness of what has been done to the victims built up to the time to, bang, this generation is required. That's the altar of souls, okay? So what happens, some of what happens in Matthew 24 happened in 70 AD. Not all of it, because, and it talks about, you know, the Lord coming in his second coming, but some of it happened that the disciples knew, like, look, if these things start going down, get out of Jerusalem, because, man, stuff is going down there that you do not want to be a part of. The disciples listened, and none of them perished in 70 AD, okay? So, we can actually find out their activities in Matthew 24, all right? So, some of these things are happening now. And there's a lot of confusion about, you know, who's doing what and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, things that are happening are, God is trying to wake up people and you know, kind of slap the rebellious teenager, if you will. But people are saying, no, it's the devil, blah, blah, blah. But it's confusing. The only way you know is to go in court and see what's going on. All right. Matthew 24:4, Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Now, it's not necessarily that they're saying, I am the Messiah, but I am anointed. Remember, Christ means anointed. And shall deceive many. Okay? So this is the guy on the white horse, guys. All right? And this is what God does. He tests and he tries. All right? So in the day and time we're in, God is testing and trying his people. All right? And the church is going to become more and more apostate. And the message is going to be so watered down of the gospel that it's going to be hard to distinguish the true from the false. So we must learn to do that. But the revelation I'm saying can help you with that. That these things are happening and we need to identify the true from the false. Okay? So what happens? Verse 11. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Well, I hate to tell you, but that's what the guy on the white horse does. He tries the people. Okay? Now, you know, some of what happens here is I'm the guy on the white horse, right? Take heed that no man deceive you. Many shall come and say, I am Christ. False prophets rise and shall deceive many. Okay? So that's the guy on the white horse. Now, there are other things where the enemy will do things. And this, I believe, is not the guy on the white horse. So verse 23, and if any man shall say to you, lo, here is Christ, and believe it not. Right? You know, that sounds similar to here. There shall rise false Christs and false prophets that shall show great signs and wonders. Now that is the enemy. So that is not the guy on the white horse, because he does not do this to show signs and wonders. He does this to try the message of good teaching. Okay? And that. But this will actually be the enemy, where there will be great signs and wonders, insomuch that they shall deceive the very elect. Okay? So the guy on the white horse doesn't necessarily do signs and wonders. He tries the message, right? So remember the prophet, the unnamed prophet. God told him, okay, I want you to go and do this, and don't stop to anyone on the way. So it was very clear what God said. And another prophet came and said, oh, an angel told me to tell you to stop here and eat. And he did, and the prophet lied to him and told him, you knew that God told you not to stop, but you did it anyway, you're going to die of lions. Happened, right? So what happened? The guy was being tested. Will you believe what God said? What God said was very clear. What God said in the scriptures is very clear. You know, so don't go into something else. And this is why. It's actually this guy, all right, on the white horse. So, you know, even me saying that, it might be kind of, you know, it's kind of hard to stomach. Look, I understand. But let's go through the other ones too as they appear in Matthew 24. All right, we'll get into the details of each one, but let's move along into each one. So then, remember the guy on the red horse had a great sword. So we find that right here in verse 6. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Okay, so this is the guy on the red horse with the sword. Wars will increase. All right, the next one. The black horse, scales. Okay? And there shall be famines. So the guy in the black horse takes the information of what's transpiring and presents it to God, and God issues a price. We'll look at this a little more, but when you see the guy in the black horse in the scales, sometimes famines are a result. All right? And then the third one is the pale horse, and his name was death and hell, and things like pestilences and earthquakes are the result of the guy on the pale horse. Okay? So here you can see that in Matthew 24, each of the four spirits are active and involved. Okay? So, we've clearly seen that they are the four spirits of the heavens, all right? And how their activities are involved in Matthew 24. That happened in 70 AD as a pattern. It's happening now, and there'll be a full fulfillment in the future. Okay, so it's important that the information I'm saying we get a grip of, because we need to know what's happening in the world around us. Okay, all right. Now let me bring up this, and let's take a look at this as well for a moment. So before, in our last video, we talked about the 12 camps. Okay, so that's this pattern here of 12. In the center is the four spirits of the heavens. Okay, so how this works is you have the first one, white, right here. And so white is the first season of the year. So according to the Hebrew calendar, the first season starts in the first month, which is Nisan, or Abib. So the first spirit of the heavens is over the season of spring. And so the corresponding months are month 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now, the stars also give witness and testimony to the four spirits of the heavens as well. They're called royal stars. And so you have a star called Aldebaran. Aldebaran is a star that appears in the constellation Taurus. Okay? So what we have is, remember, we have the guy on the white horse with the bow, with the crown, and that star appears in Taurus. All right? So now let me allow me to walk you through where the scriptures testify to this. Okay? So if we go to Genesis 49, Isaac is prophesying over his sons, and when he does, and he gets to Joseph, this is what he says. So 49 and verse 24, and this is Joseph, and his bow abode in strength. So he has a bow, right? And his arms and the strength were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. Verse 26, the latter part. And they shall be on the head of Joseph, on the crown of his head of him that was separate from his brethren. Okay, so he has a bow, he has a crown, and it's like, the fourth spirit of the heaven has a bow and has a crown. That's weird. All right, well, let's look again at Deuteronomy 33. In Deuteronomy 33, and this is Moses over the tribes prophesying, and over Joseph 33:17, and his glory was like the firstling of a bullock, and his horns were like the horns of unicorns. So this is what? A bull. So this shows us that Joseph is the sign Taurus, the ox, the bullock. Okay? And what does he have? He has a bow, and he has a crown, just like the four spirits of the heavens. So the scriptures is testifying to exactly what I'm saying. That the constellation Taurus is Joseph, and the fourth spirit of the heaven also is a type and shadow of Joseph. And so they also witness and testify to that season and that time. Okay? So that's what takes place there. And we'll go through each one. But now let's look at the activities of him. Okay, so we see him there in the stars. We see him there in Revelation. We call the four spirits of the heavens. Now in 1 Kings 22, this might be one of those scriptures that is like a head scratcher, like what? But let's look at it. 22:19, and he said, "Hear therefore the word of the Lord. And I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all his hosts of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left." Okay, so we see the Lord. He's sitting on his throne, right hand and left. And the Lord said, "Who will persuade Ahab that he might go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead?" And one said to another manner, and this manner, and he's like, God's like, okay, who will persuade Ahab to go to Ramoth Gilead? Let's throw it out there. What do you think, people? So, guys, this is what God does. He doesn't just sovereignly do stuff. He throws it out to his people. Hey, people, what do you think? Interestingly enough, Ramoth Gilead is... Now, Mahanaim, when we did Mahanaim, the two camps, Mahanaim is in Ramoth Gilead. So that is the high witness stone. So remember, Mahanaim means two camps. So that's exactly what's happening with the prophet here. The prophet is being allowed to see the two camps. He sees what's going on in the nation, and he's participating with what's happening in heaven. Praise God. Now watch this, verse 21. "And there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord, and said, I will persuade him." Okay, great. Someone's got an idea. And the Lord said, well, okay, go ahead. How do you want to persuade him? What's your idea? And he said, well, I'll go forth, and I'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of the prophets. What? Wait a minute. So here we have God's throne. We have the host on his right hand of life. Everyone is around. He's doing deliberations about what to do with Ahab. And you have someone in heaven, an angel, saying, I will be a lying spirit? Yes, that's exactly what it says. I'll go forth, I'll be a lying spirit in the mouths of the prophets. And the Lord said, that's a great idea. He said, you will persuade him. And he said, you will prevail also and go forth and do so. And remember, the guy on the white horse, he had a crown, he had a bow, and he went forth to conquer. And God is saying the same thing to this guy. Well, it's the same guy. The guy right here, guys, is the guy on the white horse. And he's saying, and you will go forth, and you will prevail, and you will you'll do so. You'll prosper. This will work out great. I know. That might sound a little crazy, but hey, I'm just reading the Bible, man. Okay, now let's also look at Isaiah 29:10. How's our lighting in here? Hold on, let me pause this a second. Okay, there's a little more light. Okay, so now moving along. Also, Isaiah 29:10. I want to read this real quick as well. As it relates to the guy on the white horse. Okay. For the Lord has poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, and the prophets and your rulers and your seers have he covered. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of the book is sealed, which men delivered one to another that is learned, saying, read this, I pray you. And they say, I cannot, for it is sealed. So guys, what I'm getting at is the revelation of the four spirits of the heavens has been sealed. Theologians can't figure it out. They focus on the four horses of the apocalypse and offer opinions of men with no revelation. But we're going through, we're seeing by the scriptures that these are not the devil or the Antichrist. Okay? Let's move on. The second one is the red horse. And then the guy in the red horse has what? A great sword. And if you remember, David had a census he took over the nation, and God gave him to judgment. And what happened? He saw an angel appearing between the heaven and the earth, and he had a great sword, and many people died. Well, I believe this is the guy on the red horse. Also, there was an angel that slew 185,000 Assyrians. I believe, again, that's the guy on the red horse. Scriptures for that are 1 Chronicles 21:16 and 2 Chronicles 32:21. Okay? So now, let's remember that according to our pattern here, we have first white, and then the second one is red. And the red star is Regulus, which appears in Leo the lion. All right? And the example for that is also in Genesis 49, verse 12. It says that Judah, the tribe of Judah, is the Leo the lion, that his eye was red like wine. Okay? So that is Regulus appearing in constellation Leo. Okay? Testifying to the same thing. Next we have black, and again on here the black is the third spirit of the heaven, and the first month in that season, 7, 8, 9, is Libra. What's Libra? Scales. What's the guy in the black horse? Scales. Testifying to the same thing. Now what happens is, I believe that God through Amos 8 puts information on the scales. The spirit of the heaven puts the information, and God issues the price, just like he does. A penny for this and whatever. You know, it could be a good price or a bad price, right? Depends if you're buying or selling. But a lot of times in negative judgments, it is famine. Okay? So, or it could be other things, that timing is up. Many other things. Like Daniel 5:25, it says that there was handwriting on the wall. You've been found wanting. And that, I believe, was the third spirit of the heaven judging that time. And that time was the kingdom was balanced, and the scales time was up with what was taking place up to that point, and judgment was issued. Okay, pale horse is pestilence, death and hell, and on here that would appear here as pale, and that star is Fomalhaut, which appears in the constellation Aquarius. Okay, you know, a lot of times there's pestilence, there's certain things that take place on the earth, but again, those things are taking place to issue righteous judgments from the Father. Okay, so here we can see four spirits of the heavens are not the Antichrist. They are four spirits of the heavens. They come before God's throne. But the information of them, or what they're doing, has been sealed.